Our press reviewer, Leo McGuinn, is here now to take us through some of the reactions and the background of that story.
Yes, Erin, it's a story that just rumbles on. It's, of course, the news that Senator Kevin McCarthy has once again failed to gain his place, or a place, as the House Speaker. The voting has now gone through 6 consecutive rounds without any resolution. This is despite the fact that former President Donald Trump called on 20 Republicans who are blocking McCarthy. He called on them to back them. They haven't listened. According to the Washington Post, they're not listening to Trump, and Trump's opinion is now irrelevant. So who are those who voted against McCarthy? We'll have a look here. Sorry, that's the wrong screen. We'll have a look at those who voted against McCarthy. The New York Times has a good breakdown of it and looks at just how right-wing they might be. In fact, over half of them, 12 in fact, explicitly denied the results of the 2020 election. That compares to just 15% of Republicans in total. The Wall Street Journal have asked the question, who is crazy enough? Who is crazy enough to be a Republican Speaker? And after all this, why does Kevin McCarthy still want the role?
But Leo, it's not just making headlines in the United States. So how is that being reported elsewhere?
Yes, Erin, so this is from the Global Times in China. In fact, they're very much rubbing their hands in glee at this news and at the downfall of the US, if you like. They call out McCarthy in the piece for what they call anti-China comments in the past. They go on to question what's happened to US democracy. They blame the difficult relations with the US on what they call sick US party politics.
All right, Leo, we'll cross now the Atlantic to the United Kingdom, where Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has been under a lot of pressure recently, of course, largely due to those NHS strikes and concerns that the health system could be overwhelmed this winter.
Conservative Prime Minister yesterday announced a 5-point plan to what he says get the UK back on track. The Conservative paper Daily Mail have them very neatly listed on their front page, so we can have a look at them here. What he wants to do, he wants to halve inflation. He wants to grow the economy, get debt falling, cut NHS waiting times and stop the small boats. By that, of course, he means immigration. It's important to note that Sunak hasn't put a date or a timeline on these pledges. As we can see on the front page of the Daily Express here, Rishi Sunak wants to be judged on this. He wants this to be his legacy. By the time the next general election comes around in 2024, he wants to have achieved most of these. The Daily Star, as they often are very tongue-in-cheek on the matter. I have a cunning plan. This is, of course, Rishi Sunak as the character Baldric in Blackadder. He often had cunning plans. They didn't very often come through or work. They've also focused on the PM's lack of a timeline, as you can see here, ending each one, but can't say exactly when.
All right, Leo, we'll change gears now and head to Paris, where you've got a story about spies and espionage. The French security service then making headlines. What for?
This really is an extraordinary story, Erin, from here in France, as you say. The DGSE, or Directorate General for External Security, as it's known in English, it's essentially the French version of CIA or MI6. So the whole story revolves around former boss Bernard Bajolet, so he was boss from 2013 to 2017. He's been indicted for complicity in extortion against a rich entrepreneur who goes by the name of Alain Duménil. Le Monde have this exclusive that they come out. This happened in October 2022, but it's only breaking now. Mr. Bajolet and his former deputy are suspected of having allowed or authorised blackmail, essentially. It's really quite embarrassing for the DGSE. They normally confine themselves to the shadows. They're now in the spotlight.
And finally, from you, Leo, we'll go to the Big Apple, where just weeks after the World Cup ended, 2 World Cup stars were walking the streets completely unnoticed.
Yeah, so just a few weeks after the World Cup ended, 2 of the stars of the tournament, France's Kylian Mbappe, of course, scored a hat-trick in the final, and Achraf Hakimi, who was part of the Moroccan side who got to the semi-final, that groundbreaking side. They've been enjoying their holidays in New York. Here's a photo of them. They went to a Brooklyn Nets game, as was expected, an NBA game, hung out with NBA stars such as Kevin Durant. But it's this that's really been catching attention. They're enjoying their time completely unperturbed by the public, essentially. They're wearing these balaclavas here. They're walking around New York as if no one knows them, and no one does know them. You can see the comments here. Naomi Campbell, fashion icon, getting involved. I've got a video I can show you. Hopefully this works. It's them, just in New York, enjoying their time. You can see, just watching a street performance in New York, completely unperturbed by the public, even though they're two of the biggest footballing stars in the world.
Well, it's certainly hard to imagine that scene playing out anywhere in Europe, or really, quite frankly, anywhere other than in the United States. Leo McGuinn, thank you very much.